John Scott, Jonathan DaCosta, Vic Carucci here as the Bills gearing up to once again face the Kansas City Chiefs, a 4:25 start inside Highmark Stadium on Sunday afternoon. Let's just start generally, the importance and magnitude of this game here in the middle of the regular season.
Well, it feels like normally when these two teams have met in the Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes era, it's been when they're fighting for the top seed in the AFC. You know, that's not the case this time around. Neither team is the division leader. I can't remember when's the last time these two teams faced off in that sort of situation. The Bills trying to keep pace with the Patriots. The Chiefs in a very tough division trying to keep up with the Chargers and Broncos. So important stakes, not the stakes that we're used to in this game, but still a very important game for both of these two teams.
Yeah, and you wonder how much it impacts just the mindset going into this game for both teams. It's fair to say the Chiefs are the more desperate team, right? You look at their division and you look at the Chargers and Broncos, and it's going to be a harder path no matter how they travel it. But they come into this game needing to get, first of all, back into the playoff picture. They're out of it right now, third place in their division. The Bills, right, it's not comfortable to be in second place, but being in second place in the AFC East is a different, I think, situation than third in the AFC West. And, of course, from the Bills' standpoint, it's also about trying to get some things right. They came off a 40-9 win, and there was still plenty of room for some criticism.
Yeah, it's interesting because we usually look at this regular season-wise where the Bills have had their success, winning 4 in a row, as a measuring stick to what may almost inevitably come down the line in the postseason, where the Chiefs have won all of these games as well. But the path currently, these two teams, there would have to be some crazy wins and upsets for them to have their traditional collision course.
That's right, and so I think it still is a measuring stick game for the Bills in the sense that they're coming off this big win. It was against Carolina. They had obviously that really bad performance against Atlanta, bad performance against the Patriots, you know. So really the only time that we've seen the Bills really beat a quality opponent was week 1 against Baltimore, and Baltimore has turned out to not be necessarily a team that we thought of them at the beginning of the season. So I think this still has the makings of what can be a statement game for the Bills, especially if they go out and correct some of the things that fans and media have been asking for them to correct now for feels like a month, specifically the passing game.
Yeah, and fans and media, and I think they should be looking at themselves, give it a hard look. Look, we're dealing with a team that, I mean, the conversation of the possible disconnect between the head coach and the offensive coordinator came up. That was asked today in the media session of Sean McDermott. Is there any disconnect between him and Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator? And why? Because they gave two different kinds of answers to question about the passing game or the state of it on Monday after that win against Carolina. I'm not saying there's a real fissure or something to worry about there from the standpoint of the team's cohesion or the coaching staff cohesion. But it's reflective of something, guys, and it goes back to this idea that what is up with the passing game. And, you know, I think the simple answer is how receivers aren't getting open or receivers aren't doing enough to help Josh Allen. But there's still this underlying sense that with Josh Allen, because we saw it last year, he can elevate things. The elevation just hasn't come.
I want to put a pin in that because something came to mind. Joe Brady's saying one thing, Sean McDermott saying another. Then now we've come to find that Bobby Babich and Sean McDermott are jointly calling the defense. You have two coordinators, not new at this point in time, but you have a team that seems to be embattled, and there does not seem to be this unison among the head coach and their two coordinators. I'll start with you, Vic. How big of a deal do you look? Is it looking too deep into it?
I'm not sure if it's looking too deep. It's definitely worth a look. I don't know how deep I want to go with that look because ultimately, let's just keep it on the defensive side for a moment. The scheme is Sean McDermott's. I mean, the core of what this team does defensively comes from a guy whose coaching background is rooted in defense. It's always been that way since he became the Bills head coach in 2017. And yes, the history shows us he moved on from Leslie Frazier, a former head coach, a highly respected coordinator and coach, a guy who was beloved by the players he coached on this team, and they moved on from him. They couldn't obviously come to, I think, a singular mind of what to do, and then, of course, Bobby Babich gets the opportunity to be a coordinator. this has been a big move for Bobby Babich to move into this role from the assistant roles he's had in the NFL, and of course the son of a longtime and retired and former Bills assistant, Bob Babich. But it's not surprising to me to see Sean wanting to get more involved when you see issues with this defense. What are the issues? The run defense has been a problem. You've heard the head coach talk about tackling and technique and gap integrity. And in general, the back end of this defense against the pass has been a train wreck at times and very worrisome. So as they have an opportunity to now face as good a passing game as they're going to see to date, maybe this is the time when Sean felt, I better get more involved and start getting Bobby and all of us used to the idea that I'm going to be very involved.
And regardless of whether he's the one actually calling the defensive plays or not, I think we have seen him, at least from watching practice. I think back to last week, I saw McDermott more sort of hands-on involved in the coaching aspect of the defense more than I had at any other point this season. Obviously, that was coming off the bye week. So I think one of those reflections, one of those self-scouts maybe that they did during the bye week, especially for McDermott, he's like, seeing the state of his defense, he probably said to himself, hey, this is my defense. I need to sort of get my hands back in the nitty-gritty of things. So obviously that paid off against Carolina. How we mentioned, playing maybe the best offense they'll see all season in Kansas City, makes sense to do that. Kind of plays into the, didn't want to touch on it too much, but asked if maybe that was some of the thought process with getting Max Hairston out against Carolina, right? We thought maybe it would take him a week or two to join the fold. They played him against Carolina. Was that maybe with the mindset of getting him ready to play this Kansas City team? Mm-hmm. McDermott didn't dive too deep into that, but it certainly seems that way. So it's one of those matchups where he'll look to play it down. The team will sometimes look to play it down, but everyone in this building knows the importance of a matchup between the Bills and Chiefs, and so I think it's one of those things where the actions maybe speak louder than the words. In terms of the offense, we've seen Joe Brady call not just a good Bills offense, a great Bills offense over the course of a season, right? And so they had this sort of lull last year. You figure that if there's a side of the ball where maybe McDermott would have more confidence in his coordinator to sort of handle it and turn things around, it would be in Joe Brady. I just don't know if that requires maybe having a game like against Kansas City where they're forced to pass it, and maybe by being forced to throw the ball, it finally gets them out of a funk. Or is this the game where Brandon Beane watches this and says, hey, I have to make a move at the deadline or else we're not going to get where we want to go this year?
Let me interject this, though. I think, first of all, it's imperative that they be able to throw the ball far more effectively than they have, whatever that is. We still don't know what that is because we haven't seen it except for the fourth quarter of the Baltimore opener. But to the point of the answer that Joe Brady gave on Monday that still lingers and bothers me is words to the effect of we didn't need the passing game, right? I'm right about that. Okay, basically because you had James Cook and the offensive line grind out 200 plus yards. Wonderful, but that's not. You always need your passing game. I mean, you always need the whole offense. And I know there was a comment from Sean earlier about the imbalance, wanting to get more balance to the offense in terms of rushing attempts to pass attempts. But guys, your passing game has to be a constant feature of what you're doing. It doesn't necessarily have to be the most prominent thing or 300 yards and 3 touchdown passes by Josh, but it's got to be there because the lack of a threat, which is where I think we are, is going to affect how defenses play you. And they're going up against one of the very best coordinators, a Hall of Fame level coordinator in Steve Spagnuolo of the Chiefs. And you know darn well he's scheming this offense with an eye toward the fact that the Bills are struggling to throw it.
We are probably all in the same belief as many of you. They could use a surplus at the wide receiver position. That is certainly at the cog of this, but I don't think it's the singular thing, and it's not just the play calling. I think Josh Allen does deserve to shoulder some of the blame for their issues recently. What do you think is going on with the reigning MVP?
I think he's just flat out missed some throws sometimes. I think back to the Carolina game, and I think Josh brought it up too. I forget if it was a play action or it wasn't play action, but it was like a crosser, and it was Elijah Moore. He has him wide open, where if he hits him in stride, he's going towards the sideline, but if he hits him, it's a good chunk gain for a first down. He just missed the throw, and I think that's not the first time we've seen that out of Josh this year. And look, he's still the reigning MVP. He may not be playing at that same level this year, but he's still the reigning MVP. He has that in him. He's obviously being forced to sometimes, I think, with the receivers not getting open. maybe try to freestyle a little bit more over the past month than we had seen him maybe the month previous to that. So I think it's all of these factors sort of combining together. Josh is not playing at the same level. His wide receivers are not getting open, right? So now he's feeling forced to try to do more things, maybe hampering his decision making. So all of these things work together to where if you then improve just one thing, maybe that allows other things around it to improve. So is it going out and getting a better wide receiver? Is it Josh maybe combining the bye week and combining this week to him looking at his own play in a more critical lens and saying, hey, here's where I need to improve? Does that allow the offense to sort of elevate? Is it something as simple as using the players you already have on your team and getting a healthy Josh Palmer back in a couple weeks, or using James Cook more in the passing game? I know we talked about his lack of use in the passing game, especially against New England and Atlanta. So there's a lot of different factors this team can go in order to improve what is obviously a pass game that needs to improve.
To Josh's credit, I'll say this. He, of course, is really stand up when it comes to taking the hard questions in losses, or in the case of the game against Carolina, you know, what's up with the passing game and what's up with you in the first half, in particular. And what did he do? He was describing his own issues with, you know, trusting his feet, trusting his reads, trusting his eyes. I would think some of that, I'm certainly going to take him at face value. I don't know what's inside his head, but it felt like at least part of that. Maybe it was, I mean, we'll say it was self-critical, but part of that could have been somewhat of a passive-aggressive way of discussing the issues with what they're having with their receivers. Because 3 and 5 steps, those drops refer to the routes, corresponding routes, right? 3-step shorter, 5-step longer developing. And is he able to trust the receivers to do what they need to do in those those various route combinations? And he didn't say that. And again, being the stand-up Josh that he is, he wouldn't say that. He doesn't do it that way, which I think his teammates appreciate. I think everybody appreciates about him, what makes him the incredibly popular guy that he is for this team. But it's interesting to note that, and as we continue down this road of what's up with Josh's game, I think that conversation could intensify, and either something gives. Does it, like we said, is it going to be the possibility of a trade, a move to get somebody in to help this receiving core, or is it just going to be more hard discussion between, you know, what we hear from Sean McDermott or from Joe Brady, the coordinator? And I don't know what can change. This offense is, you don't redo what you are in midseason.
Let's flip over to the defense. Matt Milano and Terrell Bernard, full participants on Wednesday after missing at least Sunday's game, and for that even a little bit further for Milano. The impact that these guys can bring, especially considering, I'll be honest, Terrell Bernard has not been Terrell Bernard this season. I'm not saying there are better options, whether it be Shaq Thompson or whatever, but I don't necessarily just think it's as simple as saying you get Bernard and Milano back and everything is drastically better at that position.
No, but I do think there's something to be said for the experience that they have and sort of the chemistry that, I know they've missed a lot of time, but just even in practice and everything, I'm sure the chemistry that both of them have. And I think for me, the big thing with Bernard is that maybe you're not getting the consistency out of him that you would normally get, but you know he is good for one of those boom plays that this defense depends on so much. It's not a defense that consistently gets stops, forces other teams to punt. It's a team maybe more in that bend but don't break sort of mentality that can get that timely turnover when they really need it, and generally that ball ends up in the hands of Terrell Bernard when they do get it. We think back, they're playing the Chiefs, right? How did the game end last year end here in Orchard Park? Terrell Bernard picking off Patrick Mahomes, right? So that's what you get in Terrell Bernard, even when he's not playing at his consistent best. And like at any other position, when you get the normal starters back out there, the veterans, it allows everyone else to sort of settle into their role. So you're not asking more out of Joe Andreessen or a Shaq Thompson or Dorian Williams than you maybe feel comfortable with. You allow Milano and Bernard to be back, and then as needed, you have Williams and you have Andreessen and Thompson go out there and do more so what you envisioned them doing.
You said it, Jonathan. This defense is, okay, it's bend but don't break. It doesn't, it doesn't always get those timely stops. It does get timely turnovers. That's the definition of what Sean McDermott's defense is all about. And I think a big reason why this football team finds itself with 5 wins starts there as much as anything else. Yeah, the running game's been, good to great in 4 of those games total, but it's really about the turnovers. And certainly Carolina, I think they beat them anyway, but they certainly had a lot of help from from a turnover of 3 turnovers, that 2 were touchdowns and 1 is a field goal, and results in a field goal. And I think with those 2 ball hawks that Milano and Bernard are, it enhances the chances of this team to get those timely plays, and the kinds of plays that I think are going to be so necessary to throw. When you saw the Chiefs struggling offensively early on, that's the kind of thing that was happening. Like, what's up with Patrick Mahomes throwing these picks? He even threw one against Washington.
Yeah, 2 picks, yeah.
2, exactly. There you go. And you say that's a losing recipe. So
right.
If they're able to get something like that, yes, that affects this game big time.
I want to finish with one guy who maybe I undervalued as the impact he can bring, and that's Michael Hoyt. That guy was flying all over the place against Carolina. The way you hear, whether it be Sean McDermott or Bobby Babbage or teammates talk about him, the energy, Jordan Phillips referring to him as the Tasmanian Devil, the position flexibility, especially since they're light at the defensive tackle position with Ed Oliver on injured reserve. We saw him kicking inside and standing up and rushing against the Panthers as well. The impact that Michael Hoyt is instantly bringing is already being noticed.
It's like going out and getting a guy at the trade deadline. We've talked about maybe the need for them to go out and do that at wide receiver. Getting back Hoyt and Ogunjobi was sort of like that for this Bills team, and that's the way Hoyt spoke last week about how he was viewing himself as a trade deadline acquisition that was already familiar with the team's playbook, and we saw the ability that he has to impact games, right? Not just going out there for a pair of solo tackles and that's it. No, like making game-changing plays, right? A sack and a half, getting involved. I believe he was involved in one of the turnovers as well, if I'm not mistaken.
He forced a fumble.
So that's what this team, we talked about it going into the season, right? The lack of, it's a team that gets turnovers, but they don't have a ton of those like instant impact playmakers, right? They have a few, like a Terrell Bernard, for example, or a Greg Rousseau, right? Michael Hoyt comes in and gives this team that, which is something that it desperately needs. So I think it's something where we only see his role continue to grow, especially, as you mentioned, with Ed Oliver going out, a guy that they can move around on that defensive line. I don't think we will be underestimating his impact anymore.
No, and add Daquan Jones's absence to that point that you're making. The fact that Jordan Phillips refers to him as he did, the Tasmanian Devil, underscores the other thing this guy brings, and we saw it in training camp, and we saw it in the preseason. Of course, we didn't see him after that because of the suspension. Energy. It's just natural, organic from him. The way he exudes that and is contagious within that defense. And I think that's what Jordan Phillips is saying as much as anyone else. And Jordan, I know, wants to bring that energy too, but it just lifts people up when you've got a person like that. You got to play and you got to make plays, and you can't be all over the place willy-nilly. He's doing his job. He's a pro, and he's showing that he could hit the ground running coming off that suspension.
They could certainly use some more impact guys on the defensive side of things. Bills and Chiefs, 4:25 inside Highmark Stadium on Sunday. Vic and I are going to get more into the matchup. WGRZ Plus for the latest Sports Talk Live Plus, Thursday night, 7:30 again on WGRZ Plus. With Vic Carucci, Jonathan Acosta, I'm John Scott for Channel 2 Sports.